Leave your comments on the Ask Reddit sub, and I'll read your answers on the next episode of LWIAR. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, U.S. Supreme Court Justice, passed at 87. As many of you know, today Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away at 87. She was affectionately known as Notorious RBG. She joined the Supreme Court in 1993 under Bill Clinton, and despite battling cancer 5 times during her term, she faithfully fulfilled her role until her passing. She was known for her progressive stance in matters such as abortion rights, same-sex marriage, voting rights, immigration, healthcare, and affirmative action. 5 battles with cancer during her term. Rest in peace. Edit. Lol, the dozens of you commenting, messaging me saying how her passing is somehow a victory for the Republicans or Trump should take a long, hard look at yourselves. Damn, it's like she had a war with cancer. Seriously though, rip. When she was 17, her mother died of cancer. When she was going to law school, she was caring for her husband while he had cancer. That was one hell of a war that took her. It took pretty nasty one to end the war to pancreatic, also known as the your fricked cancer. And a crap year to die on too. She couldn't socialize freely or visit her favorite shops and restaurants. On top of that, one of her last words was a concern over the direction of the country, and what her death would mean. She deserved to go in a better setting. I am sad for the timing, but I am truly convinced that she was staying alive out of sheer willpower for the past few months. She was a goddamned soldier. A lot of our heroes deserve to go in a better way. Sadly, 2020 has had other plans. I wish she'd lived to see us do better. Let's do it anyway. Heart. I'm not American. What does this mean for you guys? Man, Reddit is the wrong place to ask this question, but I'll try to give you as accurate of a response as I can. Mechanics of the court. There are 9 seats on the U.S. Supreme Court, and all appointments are for life. This structure is explicitly intended to limit political influence on the court. Now that RBG is passed, a new justice will be appointed. President Trump has already released a short list of justices he'll consider for the position. Betting markets favor Amy Coney Barrett to be the likely successor. The role of the U.S. Supreme Court is first and foremost to ensure federal law is enforced consistently across all U.S. states. They also mediate disputes between the 3 branches and levels government. For example, if the legislative and the executive branches disagree about an issue, or if the states and their federal government disagree. This includes cases where federal law and state law disagree or seemingly disagree. Finally, they are the final court of appeal for contentious issues where federal law may be unclear. Judicial philosophy. Different justices have different judicial philosophies on how they interpret the law. Some justices believe in following the literal word of the law with a strict, or narrow, interpretation. Essentially, they read the law and any supporting documentation, try to figure out what it says, and then listen to the issue at hand and try to apply the law as they understand it to the matter at hand. Other justices believe in following the spirit of the law, not the actual words. They read a law as well, but try to get a sense of what the law is trying to accomplish, even if that's different from what it literally says. They hear the case at hand and also try to apply the law as they understand it, but through the lens of the law's intent and not the law's wording. Judges can also vary on what they see the role of the court being. Some judges believe that the court is simply there to interpret the law. They can't make policies, that's the role of the legislature. This is a policy known as judicial restraint. Other judges believe that the courts should strike down bad laws. The ones who strike down what they see as bad laws typically reason that citizens have implied rights that are not explicitly stated, such as a right to privacy, not explicitly guaranteed by the Constitution but arguably in line with the founders' intent. This is a policy known as judicial activism. A third axis is originalism versus living law. Those who believe in living law think that language and concepts in law should evolve as society evolves. Thus, terms such as cruel and unusual punishment, due process, or reasonable search and seizure should not be interpreted based on how the individuals who wrote them or first applied them believed, as originalism states, but instead as how a member of modern society would interpret them. Supreme Court justices fall at different places on these 3 spectrums, and looking at judges as either liberal, conservative, or Democratic, Republican misses the point. You want to look at their beliefs in 3-dimensional space. The philosophy of the departed Justice RBG believed in a loose interpretation of the law, following its spirit, not its words. She believed in living law, interpreting law through the lens of modern society and not as the people who wrote the law intended it. Finally, she was an activist judge who believed the courts should strike down laws they felt were immoral or incorrect. What will change? Because RBG was so far to the side on all the spectrums, it's likely any replacement will move to the center in regards to judicial philosophy. The biggest change will likely be that any judge appointed by the president will likely follow a strict view of the law, ruling in favor of how that law is literally written, not with the spirit of the law. The biggest impact for Americans will likely be how the court views an individual's right to privacy. As noted above, there is no explicit guarantee of privacy in the U.S. Constitution. So someone with a strict view of that document will rule that, for instance, the government monitoring a citizen's internet traffic is legal unless Congress passes a law saying otherwise. What will not change? Pretty much everything you're seeing in the Reddit comments. Roe v. Wade, abortion, will not be overturned. It's a matter of settled law and no one on the court wants to change that. Obergefell v. Hodges, gay marriage, will not be overturned. Also a matter of settled law that no one on the court wants to touch. The biggest problem that informed people on the left will have, whether they say it directly or not, is the fact that things won't change. They want the court to rule that gun ownership should be restricted. They want to expand the regulatory power of the federal government. They want to use the court to push through new policies, etc. With the new justice, this type of judicial activism will likely not be possible. Your answer is much more comprehensive than the one I gave, and I think it's only further down because it must have taken longer to compose. I hope it can get some more attention because there's a lot of good info here. I'm grateful to both of you for breaking it down so well. Justices on the Supreme Court are appointed for life when a vacancy opens. The sitting president nominates a candidate, and that nomination is confirmed by the Senate, until RBG's passing. There were 5 conservatives and 4 liberals comprising the 9 seats of the Supreme Court. Already there was some drama in this balance, as the Republican-controlled Senate in 2016 refused to confirm any appointment made at the end of Obama's second term, not on the merits of the individual nomination, but on the premise that his term was almost over and it was more appropriate to hand the nomination to Donald Trump, who nominated moderate conservative Neil Gorsuch, and later Brett Kavanaugh. Now it's looking like Trump will get to choose a third candidate before his term ends and swing the court even farther rightwards, despite the similarity in timeline to the previous kerfuffle with Obama's nomination of moderate liberal Merrick Garland. This has big political ramifications for the balance of power in the coming decades. Again, justices are appointed for life, and the Supreme Court's decision set the precedent for all the lower courts throughout the Union. For example, a 6-3 Republican majority and the loss of the fairly ardent liberal Ruth Bader Ginsburg could mean the overturning of the landmark Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision that ruled that state and federal laws outlawing abortion were unconstitutional. By no means is this decision guaranteed by the changing balance there was. For instance, a conservative Supreme Court during George W. Bush's tenure that never attempted to overturn Roe, but it is a flashpoint in American politics, and an issue that looms large in the left-leaning segment of the American populace as Ginsburg's seat is decided. UCS Mastermind gives a lot more background on judicial powers and some more nuance to judicial philosophy, and the ways it goes beyond simply liberal versus conservative. In his answer here, I disagree somewhat with his conclusions, but they are another take that's worth hearing. My understanding is Kavanaugh and Roberts both have stated that precedent matter more than their personal beliefs. Roberts voted in favor of abortion rights earlier this year. Roberts seems to care greatly about the public perception of the court, and intends to conduct it with dignity. While I disagree with him politically, I have been pleasantly surprised by his leadership. I will add that one of the potential, and very conservative, SCOTUS justices put forward on a list by Trump recently, Senator Tom Cotton, sent out a tweet saying that if he is appointed, he will ensure that Roe v. Wade will be overturned. 17 states currently have trigger laws that would ban all abortion the second Roe v. Wade is overturned. Cotton also wrote an op-ed for using military force against protesters. My point is that with a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court, it is very likely a variety of laws regarding reproductive rights, LGBT protections, environmental regulation, immigration, healthcare, etc., will be stifled or outright overturned with another Trump justice on the court. This is why so many Americans are reasonably scared. Roe v. Wade isn't the controlling law. Planned Parenthood v. Casey is what everyone should be discussing. As a Canadian, I am familiar with Roe vs. Wade. I'm unfamiliar with Planned Parenthood vs. Casey though. What was this case and why is it of higher significance? So, Roe vs. Wade struck down a lot of the laws that restricted a woman's right to choose. This was based on the 14th Amendment's right to privacy and personal liberty as well as the 9th Amendment's assertion that people have rights even if they are not explicitly enumerated by their Constitution. This meant that states could not make a blanket law that bans all abortion in all circumstances. So, a lot of legislators worked to get around this. They started making a lot of laws that didn't ban abortion but made it very difficult to get one. For example, if you wanted to get an abortion in Pennsylvania in 1982, you would have to bring a piece of paper showing that you had notified your husband you were doing. So, what Planned Parenthood vs. Casey did was say that you cannot create an undue burden that prevents someone from exercising their right to an abortion. If it gets overturned, then even if Roe vs. Wade remains intact, people can write laws that while they don't ban abortion, they could put so many rules around abortion that it makes it logistically infeasible for anyone to get one. I would just add that in 2016 the time remaining until the election was approximately 10 months. And this is approximately 1 to 2 months, so similarity in timeline is generous to Mitch McConnell. This is an important distinction. With the time difference, McConnell bringing it to a vote is extremely hypocritical. He has never cared less in his life. If anything, he is giddy to do it. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves. For it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly. Since he believes in words, the anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse by giving ridiculous reasons. They discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. Jean-Paul Sartre. This reminds me a lot about the alt-right playbook. Never play defense. The entire series is brilliant. But it's true that liberals and fascists have different methods of argument. It's true that bigots essentially troll their ways into the general consciousness, knowing that rightfully outraged liberals will end up giving them validity by arguing with them. And it will mean frickle to him as he rams the appointment through. He already said he would. He literally had no respect for RGB and said he would vote Trump's appointment through in his statement about her death. www.npr.org. The bald-faced hypocrisy is astonishing. Expect the appointment by the afternoon. Trump announced possible justices 2 days ago. He must have heard she was near death. I was wondering why he was doing that. Seems so disrespectful to be replacing her before she had even passed. We are in for a wild freaking ride now. So this is how 2020 ends. The world wasn't supposed to end in 2012, it was in 2021. Frick. Dyslexic but Mayans. Republicans fought tooth and nail to prevent a Supreme Court justice being appointed in an election year 4 years ago. Time to see hypocrisy of the highest order from McConnell. And not a single conservative will care, no matter how far the courts are stacked. He already said last year, I believe that if a vacancy popped up in 2020 he would fill it. He confirmed just now he'll bring it to a vote. Haha, of course he already has. Good luck with that. Mitch McConnell is a Balzac with eyes. Hey, that's an insult to Balzacs. Yeah, a mega thread is probably best for this. Rip to hell. On AskReddit. This way mods have a blanket excuse to purge the inevitable wave of now that RBG has passed. Will the Supreme Court ban Delphine selling bathwater type of ignorant shitposts? Thanks for watching LWIAR. The best of recent r/AskReddit submissions and comments. If you like this video, check out LWIAR too. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.